What's up, everyone, and welcome to our brand new podcast,
The LPP Podcast.
Hi, I'm Jeremias Katambis.
Hi, I'm Dexmi Kentoy.
And hi, I am Adrian Di Claro. We are second year students of Bachelor of Secondary Education major in English, and we will be hosting this podcast. So, for today's episode, we are going to discuss the different theories and approaches of language planning and policy here in the Philippines. Yes, you heard it right, Pilipinas. We will also know if there are similarities and differences of those theories and approaches as it is applied in other countries.
But before anything else, we will know first the importance of language and also knowing what is a language planning and policy.
Adrian, what do you think is the importance of language?
Basically, we all know, and yes, we can't deny that language is very important.
Exactly.
For me, without language, the world would be lifeless because it connects us to different people. It allows us to transmit really complicated thoughts to one another. And also, let's be thankful that there are different language planning and policies made both formally by governments and informally by scholars and other community leaders. Because according to the Center for Applied Linguistics, these influence the right to use and maintain languages. It affects language status and determine which languages are still nurtured.
In addition to this, language policy is a more general linguistic, political, and social goals underlying the actual language planning process.
Language planning is all conscious efforts that aim at changing the linguistic behavior of the speech community.
And that's definitely correct. So anyway, we are now going to proceed to the main discussion of this episode. Philippines is a multilingual country with over 100 different languages. Linguists note that the languages vary significantly and that they can be classified into language families, which include the Northern Group,
Ilocano, Pangasinense, and Kapampangan.
and a Central Group.
Tagalog, Bicolano, Hiligaynon, and Cebuano.
To sustain, reinforce, and expand the languages in the Philippines, the language provisions of the Republic of the Philippines 1987 Constitution, which are expressed in Article 14, Section 6 and 7, provide the legal framework for the country's various language policies.
In the language planning and policy of the Philippines, some of the approaches are present. We had observed that the historical approach is there in which it is all about the historical structural influence of socio-historical factors on language use, and it considers past relationships between groups. Also, it is concerned with the issue of class dominance and oppression.
Another approach is the language management approach wherein the LPP involves 1. Identifying a deviation from languages used. 2. Evaluating language use. 3. Designing or implementing a new norm. 4. Evaluating the norm.
So that's it, and those are the approaches that we think and we had observed that they were being applied to some of the different language planning and policies here in the Philippines. If we compare Philippines to India, we can definitely say that there are similarities with regards to the implementation of the language planning and policies. India is an Asian country that consists of more than 400 individual languages.
Just like in the Philippines, English operate official languages for central government, but the individual states are given opportunity to decide what languages they will use for local administration and education.
Another similarity is when language and education policy requires states and local authorities to endeavor to provide elementary education in mother tongue for all linguistic minorities, regardless of whether their language is the official in the state.
One last thing, Philippines and India are both countries that had been colonized by some European countries. It considers the historical approach because there is a past connection between India and the European countries, which leads to influence the language planning and policy of the country. Yes, finally! But before we end this episode, we just want to share some tips coming from the three of us on how to improve the language policy for speakers of non-English language communities.
Immerse yourself in English language use. Start a vocabulary book of useful words. Practice the 4 core skills: reading, writing, speaking, and listening.
Don't be afraid to mistakes. Your goal is to deliver a message, not to speak perfect English with a grammar and vocabulary.
Use visual aids, pictures, and other visuals are extremely helpful because non-native speakers do not have the same reference points as native speakers. Make the best use of oral communication.
We hope that we did not waste your time listening and joining with us.
We hope that you've gained something from us today.
We will promise that we will become more productive for us to consistently upload a podcast with regards to the language planning and policies for you. Yes, you, our beloved listeners. Join us in our next upload. Stay hydrated and God bless you.